And a negotiation of this kind, like any similar negotiation, international negotiation in particular, uh, requires that the two sides agree on the basic purpose of the negotiation, what they're trying to achieve, what the end goal is. Once they get to that point, they can haggle over the price. They can haggle over the nature of the compromise. But getting a clear end goal is the first hurdle. And it's not only a technical hurdle, it's even more so a political hurdle for each of these two countries. Curiously, the Iranians are more unified here than so far than the Trump White House. Hardliners in Iran have already signaled that they're concerned and so on, but the supreme leader is basically drawing a line and they're falling in line. And I suppose we have, it could be said, our own supreme leader in the White House, but nevertheless, the kind of fractious nature of policymaking in the administration we've seen in multiple arenas, including, of course, the tariff policy, means that the really important negotiating that's taking place, as is so often the case in U.S. International engagement, is in Washington in the administration, and we're going to have to see how that plays out. From a strategic point of view, Iran doesn't have very much leverage. It desperately needs many, if not most of the sanctions to go away. Its economy is in free fall. And so the Iranians could be ready to agree to a regime of very limited enrichment, shipping out all the rest of enriched uranium. They have a substantial stockpile now of 60% enriched uranium, maybe to Russia, and allow for a maybe even more intrusive kind of inspection agreement with a longer horizon. So maybe Iran would give some room on that. What it would want, again, if there's a consensus on the basic premise of an agreement, and that's not obvious yet, right? But what Iran wants is substantial sanctions relief. And if it gets it, and we get the beginnings of a negotiation, it has to be said that the devil's in the details, and it took weeks and weeks, and if not months, to get to the details in the case of the JCPOA. So if the administration has given up maximalist demands, and we don't know that yet, and by maximalist I mean the demand that Iran basically denuclearize, that is going to open the door to a negotiation that's not in the end probably going to produce an agreement that looked radically different from what the Obama administration produced in concert with other international leaders, and what an agreement that, of course, Trump repudiated and denounced in 2018. All this talk of Iran getting a bomb evokes what I call the Dr. Strangelove sort of thesis, which is somehow it's all about creating one bomb. Having just one bomb doesn't give Iran any kind of deterrent capacity at all. On the contrary, it would have to have a much larger and much more ambitious program of multiple weapons that it could then use to have what experts call a second strike capacity. And getting to that point, it would be extremely difficult. Iran is not North Korea in that regard. But what it would prefer is clearly an agreement that would allow it to enrich at a very low level, but in return for a massive agreement on removing most of the sanctions. That's really what it wants. And the question will be, I think, in the end, whether the Trump administration and Trump himself has the emotional coherence to allow for that kind of agreement, or whether instead fighting within the administration will prevent it. So there's a lot of precarious moments ahead. And to reemphasize, we don't know whether the two sides are really ready to establish the end goal, the purpose of negotiations. Once we get to that point, then, as I say, the real talks will begin, but we're not there yet.